Happy Friday to all here in football life. We are back here on the Deep Thirds Football Podcast, the 6th edition. We are back for the first time in over a month. I'm your host, Randy Hammond, joined by my football expert and friend, Matt Bushnell. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Randy. How about yourself?
You know, it feels like so long ago that we did that show and how much the world has changed since. It is insane to me. We can talk a lot about what's going on in the NFL world and the actual world. All I know is that so much has gone on since Super Bowl 54, and when we had our breakdown on that, I'm actually just trying to turn on down the audio on my computer, which I apologize for anyone who can hear me in the background. It's a rookie mistake on my part. I apologize. So a little rusty here. Matt, you know, with this world we're living in now, you can't really go anywhere, can't really do anything. Keep yourself busy. How you doing?
Well, you know, thankfully I'm still able to work from home, which is always a blessing and a curse in the same token. Many of you know that I do have quite the small army in this household. I do have 6 kids. So it's an exciting time. So when they're not driving me crazy or bringing me lots of joy and love, I tend to just to kind of want to sit back and relax. I miss my sports. I miss my spring training baseball. Miss my White Sox. But our savior is here, Randy.
Yeah, you can't really say it any better than that. I mean, thank God for football. I mean, I think we can say we can agree in that football is the greatest sport out there. And like when you're down and you're out and you need something to pick you up, there's NFL football there for you when you need it the most. This is something that we are taking seriously, but we're hoping to offer you guys some entertainment in this time. We're all kind of struggling here in our own ways, so you know we're thinking about you, but we also want to try to give you a little bit of an escape from what you might be going through at this time. So come hang out and enjoy some football talk for the next hour or so. Matt, we got a lot of free agency frenzy to talk about. There's a lot of moves. And if you have not paid attention, there's a lot of stuff that you're going to think is just crazy. A lot of trades going on. Some people making some poor decisions, which isn't new to the NFL. So we're going to get into that as well. So I think we should start. And I think this is, I mean, the biggest news in a while in sports, obviously, given the landscape we're in right now. But in football, we've seen guys leave their teams and go to other teams. Then it seems unexpected. But it also, you can kind of, you remember like guys in uniforms are like, that just doesn't look right to me. This one might take the cake on that. The GOAT, the greatest quarterback of all time, Thomas Edward Brady, is no longer a New England Patriot, and he is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer? What? How did this happen, Matt?
A lot of disrespect on so many fronts. You know, Brady's like one of those guys, put some respect on his name a little bit. You know, he deserved better from New England. I take a look at all the years that he took a pay cut. He was never like one of the top 5 paid quarterbacks from what I can remember in the history of his career so far playing in the NFL. And you take a quarterback that has given so much to a franchise, and all he wanted was some weapons. Like, hey, go get me Stephon Diggs. Now, Antonio Brown, you know, if Antonio Brown wasn't crazy and turned into a clown, that would have been a really nice fit. Obviously, Gronkowski just took a beating and he couldn't play anymore. But, man, you saw the writing on the wall this past year. Brady, without his weapons, wasn't as good. And I think what we're going to see is I actually think Brady's going to have a really good year with the Buccaneers with Mike Evans. You know, I love O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. I think those are some really good tight ends. They can go double tight end set with them. I still think they might need a running back, but, man, there's so much there to really like about this offense.
We have a guy, Chris Godwin.
Yep, Chris Godwin. And here's a number for you, Randy, and just kind of your thoughts on this. The Buccaneers, I believe, had 7 one-possession games that they ended up losing. In those games, Jameis Winston had 18 turnovers.
My guy. I mean, we talked about this. We talked about our year-end recap about what our favorite thing was about the season. Famously, I mentioned that watching Jameis Winston, the unpredictable train wreck that was Jameis Winston, was my favorite thing because he could have thrown a beautiful touchdown pass, like one of the most beautiful throws you'll ever see, but he also could throw one of the most dim-wit interceptions you could ever see. And I think that obviously Tom Brady I think the stat that I saw was Tom Brady has thrown less interceptions in the last 4 years combined than Jameis Winston thrown just last year. So this solves a lot of their turnover problems alone.
Yeah, and I have to give
Uh,
a little credit to Ryan Shiner, who's faithfully watching this. He did his comments spot on. All old people from New England end up moving to Florida, so Tom Brady's just following that path.
yeah, I have some things though. I mean, the Buccaneers I think have the worst uniforms in professional sports. They have those ugly alarm clock numbers. You got to do something about it. You go back to the creamsicle for all I care. Tom Brady cannot wear those alarm clock numbers. I have a large amount of respect for Tom Brady. I'm one of the few lucky fan bases who he has not tortured, and we can get into that if you'd like. But I think most people watching don't want to hear me go on a Giants tangent. However, I respect greatness in all forms, and Tom Brady by all means is the staple for consistency and greatness and competitiveness. And as someone who played football and someone who's competitive in life, I can appreciate that. I think that any of us in any career in any way of life, if you've spent 20 years doing something with someone and you don't feel the tiniest bit appreciated, you're gonna be mad about that. And I think that like even me, I've had my job for over 2 years, and they go out of their way to make me feel like I'm wanted and that I do a good job. And I think that's a good leadership. And there's just to a point where like, yeah, you know how this is how this guy operates, but you can't you haven't asked for a better 20-year run in anything than that they've had. And for them to just throw you a bone at the end and be like, you know what, Tom, thank you for everything that you've done. Obviously, you're not the same player that you used to be, but we're going to do whatever you want. We'll give you whatever money you want, and we'll try our best to put the best team around you as possible. But no, that's not what they did. They obviously kind of surrounded him with mediocre weapons last year. He had a down year for his standards, but Tom Brady standards, mind you, he still had a decent year. And they still weren't really putting forth much effort to improve the team. So I think this is a message from Belichick that the last 20 years were not Tom Brady. This was me. And I respect the hell out of Bill Belichick, but this is why if you're a Patriots fan, you should be angry at Bill and slightly at Kraft, but mainly Bill for this happening. You're going to see a number 12 running out in pewter and red in Tampa Bay in September, and it's going to be weird.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to feel like your father's NFL or even, yesteryear's NFL. Look, I totally get it. The Bulls broke apart with Jordan. That was one of my favorite moments of my, I guess you could say, teenage years, was watching those great Bulls teams and how Jerry Krause wanted to break them apart a year too early than a year too late. And my feeling is I always want things to run its course. I want to see them play until they fall off. And there's something about the greatest quarterback winning 6 Super Bowls with one team to stay with that team. And it's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to feel the same. But the other point I want to make, and then, I'll let obviously you handle the other part of this question, Randy. I worry about Bruce Arians and Tom Brady because Tom Brady, for all the great things that he does, his arm strength has always been a question. And one of the things that Bruce Arians loves to do is throw it deep. Like with the Cardinals, he had this saying, no risk it, no biscuit. So he definitely loved taking chances. Whereas I see Brady being very cerebral, he's not going to risk things. He's going to make the right decision at the right time. So how do you think that's going to work out between coach and player?
I think Arians is very much the opposite of what Brady's had for the last 20 years, right? Like Arians has been on the record of saying like you practice and then you practice and then you go home. You don't need to stay after practice, do your job, and then you can leave. He's known to have a few cocktails. He's been more loose of a guy. I think that's kind of attractive to Brady. I think that he's had that hard nosed, kind of stuck up kind of guy for the last 20 years. Now he still wants to win. And I think Arians can help him win. But I think that he definitely was attracted to the guy who's a little bit more loosey goosey compared to the no days off mentality. And it's not to say Tom won't do what he's always done, which is watch tape unrelentlessly and just go as hard as he possibly can. But to go to your arm strength point, he's not Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he ever was Patrick Mahomes. But I think Brady's arm is way better than a lot of people give him credit for. I think that you've seen like a lot of times where he can unload when he needs to. I mean, it was never like a deep threat offense in New England besides like the Randy Moss years. But like you said, he's cerebral. He's super accurate in his passing. And I think, and this might be me reaching a little bit here, but New England, they constantly played in cold weather games, constantly below zero, constantly snowing. Tampa, the air is thinner. You're going to have a chance to be a little bit looser, a little bit warmed up, a little bit more warmed up. I think that his arm might be a little bit more alive down there, at least at the beginning of the year. I'm excited to see how him and his connection with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's, and the OJ Howards in the world, like you mentioned earlier. I'm not going to be surprised if Arians still tries to do that with him and it is still successful. But as the year goes on, I won't be shocked if they make adjustments if it doesn't work out. I mean, Brady's really smart, and so is Bruce Arians. I think this is going to work, and I think they do need a little bit better running back. Not my biggest concern. I think their O-line is way more of a concern than running back. But I'm excited to see what Tom Brady and Bruce Arians can do, because I just think that his weapons is not even close, or way better than he ever had in New England since Gronk retired. Really, I mean, it's night and day. It's completely different.
Yeah, and a name to keep out that makes a lot of sense is Jason Peters to go down to Tampa. I think that's a logical fit to go down to Tampa and help protect Brady.
Uh-huh. I think that they do need to get a better offensive line. Brady is not the mobile guy. He's never been that mobile. He's obviously 42 now. He's not the most athletic guy, but I think he's motivated to make this work. I think obviously New England didn't end the way any of them would have thought or wanted to, except maybe Bill. So I think he's really going to try his hardest, at least his first year, to make it work. And if you notice in the contract, it's 2 years, $50 million guaranteed, and he said he wants to play past it. So I think that he's motivated to show that he could still play. Let's not act like Tom Brady is as bad as Peyton Manning was at the end with the Broncos, or how bad Eli was with the Giants towards the end. He's way more capable than either of those guys are. At least in my opinion, he is. So I think it's going to work. At least the first year, I think it's going to work. I don't know if Super Bowl is a thing, but I can see him winning the division, and I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs. I'm excited to see it. So a couple things from me before we move on is that it is just bizarre to me that a team like the Giants was more loyal to Eli Manning than the Patriots were to Tom Brady, who went to 9 Super Bowls and won 6 of them. And a franchise before Tom Brady got there, before they won a Super Bowl, was pretty awful. I mean, you remember that better than me. But, I mean, on the Bill Simmons podcast earlier this week, he broke down about how hard it was being a Patriots fan for most of his life. And that when they made it to the Super Bowl in '85 and they got shellacked by the Bears, they made it to the Super Bowl later in the '90s and they lost to the Brett Favre Packers. Those were like the 2 best days that they ever had. And there was like, holy crap, they made the Super Bowl. It was unlike anything they ever had before. Now this was like the new norm. Like, the Patriots are the bad guys now. Like, Brady and Belichick changed all that. And this is how you treat the guy. I mean, 20 years is a long time, don't get me wrong. But if Derek Jeter wanted to stick around for 2 more years, I'm pretty sure the Yankees would have let him. I just like think of Derek Jeter in like a San Diego Padre uniform, and it just maddens me. I would just be, I would be very mad if I was a Patriots fan. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you think this is going to work out in the long run for Brady?
Yeah, I think for Brady, this is actually a good fit overall for him. I do kind of worry. And, one of our commenters did point out the Bucs signed an offensive lineman that played 6 games the past 2 seasons. So I'm not sure if that's doing Brady any favors. But with the weapons, and the thing that we don't pay attention to is that the Buccaneers were a top 5 defense last year. Statistically speaking, it's a very good, sound defense. They did lose Gerald McCoy, but I still like a lot of things that they are able to do defensively. And I think this team with Brady, they can take chances because their defense will allow them to, and that makes a big difference. So it's not like he's going from a team that has a bunch of offensive weapons and no defense. Whereas with the Patriots, he really didn't have a lot of weapons, but he still had that defense. So he's almost keeping that defensive unit in place, but he's just getting better weapons. So
yes, and Todd Bowles is a very good defensive coordinator, despite not being a great head coach. Still a really good defensive coordinator. It's one of those. There's a lot of those guys in the league that are good coordinators, not good head coaches. And Todd Bowles, maybe not Bill Belichick, still a really good coordinator on that side of the ball. Okay, before we get to the impact this has on the Patriots, I have a trivia question for you. So one of my best friends that I grew up with in high school, I played football with, is one of the biggest Packers fans that I know. One of my favorite things that I always just make fun of him for is this question right here. Matt, can you tell me who caught the last pass that Brett Favre threw as a Green Bay Packer?
God, I feel like it was the opposing defense. I know it was an interception. I just can't remember. Well, are we talking about a Packer that caught it? Or
No. His last pass in general was not caught by a Green Bay Packer, but it was actually caught by a New York Giant.
Okay. Yeah, I figured that much. Oh, God, Favre.
Yes. So the Giants cornerback Corey Webster picked him up in the overtime of the 2007 NFC Championship game, and then he moved on to play for the Jets. My best friend was the biggest Bar fan, hated me forever for rubbing that in. But this reminds me of. Do you remember what Tom Brady's last pass was as a New England Patriot?
Oh God, it was to a Titan.
It was to a Tennessee Titan. It was a pick six to Logan Ryan.
Wow.
So
Geez, talk about fate.
yes. So, all right, now we can move on. I just wanted to get that out there. I know Vince will be happy to hear that trivia question if he's listening or if you'll listen later. But now there's a whole other aspect to this, Matt, that we haven't gotten to yet, is that the New England Patriots have known for the last 20 years, besides one, that they have had number 12 and under center for them. And, you as a Bears fan know that the best thing about having a good quarterback is knowing who's playing quarterback every week. And the Patriots have had that luxury more so than anyone. And it's going to be different. And I want to know your thoughts. Who's going to be the quarterback for the New England Patriots in 2020?
I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce his name right because I know it's Stidham, I think. Jason
Yes.
Stidham. Yeah.
Jared Stidham.
Jared Stidham. Oh, boy. Well, welcome to the rest of the NFL, New England. Welcome to quarterback purgatory. It's going to be my best advice to you is don't settle. Just don't settle. You've been spoiled. Expect to be spoiled again.
I am shocked that you took this take because I'm ready for them to experience what the rest of us have experienced. And I know I've had the same quarterback for 16 years, for a 16-year stretch on my team. But just the fact that you've had this luxury for the last 20 years when everyone else is just kind of like trying to get that, it's like such a nice thing knowing that no matter what happens on Sunday, who's playing quarterback and they're probably going to do a damn good job of doing it. So for me, they have a couple options here. I don't know if they'd be willing to go in on Cam. Obviously, Carolina's trying to get rid of him. I think it would be a decent fit. I think Bill could kind of change him a little bit. I don't think he would put up with a lot of his crap. And I think that they could totally build their offense around a running quarterback like that. Plus, Cam has a cannon for an arm. I don't know if he can make it more accurate, but I'd like to see him try. I think there's a couple. I think Jameis Winston, which I've read today that they're not that interested, but Jameis has got to go somewhere. I think he's capable. Maybe Bill can help him turn down the turnovers, but I thought that about Bruce Arians. Who knows? Maybe they get worse in cold weather. I don't really know. My favorite option, and this is more so that if it worked out, it'd be the funniest thing. If they signed Andy Dalton and they win the division, I feel like we can just say Tom Brady was a system quarterback for the rest of time, right?
Oh, man. If that's the case, Bill Belichick has to be the greatest coach that ever breathed oxygen on the face of the earth. The fact that he had Matt Castle win 11 games, and then he takes the Red Rifle to like unbeknownst heights ever before. I would just give up. I burn all my Bears stuff. I would stop being a Bears fan. I would have a statue of Bill Belichick in my backyard. I'd go out every morning and pray to him, hoping for, good things to happen. It'd be the end of the world.
It would be just incredible. I would love to see it. I obviously we're kind of just throwing out ideas here, so I could see a potential reunion with Jacoby Brissett. Already played there, started some games during the Deflategate. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is happening. I think that was just something that came out of Tom Brady's camp. But I also could see them. This is a life group crossover here, but the NBA version of this is happening right now in the Golden State Warriors. But this is kind of forced on them because of injuries, but they made it to the finals basically 5 times in a row. And this year they are the worst team in the sport because an injury to Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant walks out the door. But now they're going to get a top 3 pick and they're going to reload. Those guys are going to come back and they're going to be awesome again next year. If you're the Patriots, throw Jared Stidham out there. If it doesn't work, you got a top 5 pick next year. Load back up and let's see what happens. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. You haven't had a losing season in over 20 years. The Patriots fans will live. I think they'll be okay. So that's just my theory. Trevor Lawrence, God forbid, if Trevor Lawrence ends up on the Patriots, I think we're all in trouble, but I don't think it's that far-fetched. Don't you think? I think that's a possibility.
Well, seeing how, I know we're going to get to them in a second, but that was kind of my dream scenario, Randy. Thank you for ruining it. I was hoping the Bears would bottom out and get Trevor Lawrence, but then I have to
Oh,
think
okay.
about it's the Chicago Bears and they would screw up a wet dream. So
They'll go 8-8.
exactly. I mean, 8-8. That's my destiny as a Bears fan is to watch this football team until the day I die. Go 8-8. If the Patriots get Trevor Lawrence, I'm done. I'm seriously just done. Like I had to watch the Packers get Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. I had to watch the 49ers get Steve Young and Joe Montana. The freaking Colts got Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. Like, why do I have to be getting kicked in the balls as a Bears fan all the time?
You
Why
watch the
me?
Giants go from Eli Manning to Daniel Jones. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah, just yes, sir. May I have another?
I just had to throw it in there just to rub salt in the wound.
Yeah, it's
All
going to
right.
be fantastic.
A lot up in the air when it comes to the New England Patriots. Still a great defense. Lack of offensive weapons overall. I'm kind of interested to see what they do going forward. If they go all in on this, maybe they make a move this year for a quarterback. Going to be hard. Could be done. Still, I think they like that Love guy. We'll see what they do. But we have a lot more to talk about other than the New England Patriots. I'm sorry, everyone listening, if you really wanted this to be a New England Patriots podcast. I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about this offseason. Another quarterback shifting teams this offseason via free agency is one who probably has to quarantine his own family because he has more family members than are allowed in one space. It's Philip Rivers. He has, I believe, 9 children. So I think one of them is going to have to go somewhere else for a little while. He signed a 1-year, $25 million deal with the Indianapolis Colts, which was one of the predicted landing spots for Rivers. What do you think of that?
I love everything about the Colts. I love what they've done so far. They've built this team with the offensive line, and I know a lot of Cowboy fans will puff out their chest and say, "Oh, we have the best offensive line in football." No, you don't. It's the Indianapolis Colts. They have a bunch of hog mollies up there that will just blow you off the line. I love their defense, no name defense, and then they get Deforest Buckner to add to that defense. Once that happened, and we kind of read between the tea leaves, and we knew that Philip Rivers was probably going to go there. So I just assumed that I have the Colts in my top 4 teams going into next season. I think the Colts are just they probably need another weapon or two offensively, and then you're just really going to see that team take off. Defensively, they're going to be so solid and sound. I love Frank Reich as a head coach. Chris Ballard's and you know what? The Bears chose Ryan Pace when they've had Chris Ballard back in their systems before. Chris Ballard was an assistant under Jerry Angelo, worked really well, was beloved throughout the entire organization. Everyone loved Chris Ballard. Everyone thought he was super sharp. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs, worked under, God, I can't remember the Chiefs GM right now. But anyway, the Colts plucked Chris Ballard and a home run hire. Best thing that happened to that team was Josh McDaniels tucked his little tail between his legs and ran back to New England, and they got the right guy for the job.
Mm-hmm.
This team is stacked as far as really solid foundational football players. 12-4, easy. I mean, they're going to beat the Titans, they're going to beat the Texans, and they're going to beat the Jags. I don't think there's any team in that division that can challenge them as we talk right now.
Wow. And someone's all in on the Colts, so I'm surprised about this. I just I'm not as high on Philip Rivers as everyone else. I think that obviously he's a future Hall of Famer. He's had a great career, but last year he really fell off. He did not have a good year last year at all. But I mean, he had a career high in interceptions. He just a lot of times did not look like himself. He looked like kind of like he fell off a cliff almost to me. But to your point, the Colts offensive line, big plus, running game, big plus. They don't really have many offensive outside weapons, I would say. Like, I mean, T.Y. Hilton is still pretty good. Zach Pascal came on toward a little bit here and there. What is it? Paris Campbell, okay, a little bit. Yeah, I think they need to snag one of these. It's a deep wide receiver class. They need to snag a playmaker in the second round. I think their offensive line is stacked. Like you mentioned, their defense is stacked. I think they need another playmaker, whether it be – I don't think they need to pick a tight end that high. I think tight ends you can get just about anywhere. But the slot receiver, maybe an outside threat to go alongside T.Y. Hilton, I think they need to address a playmaker situation because T.Y. last year missed a bunch of games. He's proven to be injury prone. I think that Jacoby Brissett showed like he worked well with them, but once he got hurt, he struggled. And Jacoby Brissett himself obviously got hurt. I just don't trust Philip Rivers at this stage of his career right now. I could see it working. I could also see it becoming a big mess. And the Titans, the Tennessee Titans, who defeated and slayed the dragon in the New England Patriots, which I correctly predicted in our playoff prediction, also forced Tom Brady into leaving the New England Patriots, signed Ryan Tannehill back. They obviously had a good thing going with him. They tagged Derrick Henry because they're a smart team and they're not going to overpay for a running back. They are still just as good as they were last year. And I think the Titans are still the team to beat in that division until Philip Rivers shows me anyway that he is the Philip Rivers of old.
Let me give you a name. And you mentioned slot receiver. And this is the guy that the Colts should go target, and that's Emmanuel Sanders. They go get Emmanuel Sanders. It is going to change that offense. And then, like you said, second-round pick is a very deep wide receiver class. You get one of those burners. God, I forget his name. I like him, though. I think he's out of Clemson. But, there's a lot of
guys. I mean, it's very deep. It's very, very deep.
Yeah. So right now, their focus should be Emmanuel Sanders, get him under contract. So, to me,
I like that move. I would like that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for a really good team. And keep in mind, I think one of the bigger things that we forget about with the Chargers. So 2 years ago, let's take it back when I think they went 12-4 or 11-5. Yeah. I can't remember their exact record. Melvin Gordon was an absolute beast that year. He was fantastic. This year, obviously, with the contract dispute, he didn't want to be franchised, and he just really kind of fell off in 2019. So I think with a more steady running game that's not dependent more so on the running back as it's dependent on the offensive line, I think we're going to see a much better Rivers and a much more accurate offense. And keep in mind, here's the biggest X factor, too, in my mind, is that Frank Reich was there when Philip Rivers really exploded. So I like the reconnection between Rivers and Reich.
That's a good point. I love Frank Reich as a play caller. He made Jacoby Brissett look really good before he got hurt last year. Obviously helped Nick Foles, who we'll talk about in a little bit, win a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. But we'll have to move on here eventually. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with the Colts. I really like Marlon Mack, who we haven't mentioned either. He's no sloucher running back either, so if he could stay healthy. I like the Colts roster on paper. I don't know how well Philip Rivers is going to be. That said, I thought Drew Brees had fallen off the cliff the year before last. Come back, had a strong year this year, so it's not impossible. So we'll see. We'll see about the Colts. I mean, I still like the Titans a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. Shout out to James Pinos, by the way. He said there's no more 8-8 anymore, Matt. You can't go 8-8 anymore, which we haven't talked about. 8-8's not a thing anymore.
I got one more year, one more season to see 8-8. But no, watch. The Bears are going to go 8-1.
Yeah, they're going to have a tie.
Yeah, just to keep on screwing with me.
Yeah, I believe it. All right, we got one more free agent to talk about, which is kind of shocking and kind of goes to my comment about how you don't pay running backs. Todd Gurley, an MVP candidate in 2018, released by the Rams earlier this week and signed a contract with his hometown Atlanta Falcons. How do you feel about that?
I've been a proponent, and I've stuck up for a lot of running backs throughout the NFL. I still feel like it's a valuable position to have. And I know that we've had a lot of discussions about, was Saquon Barkley worth, being drafted number 2 overall? How come they couldn't move down a spot to get, Quentin Nelson or a Roquan Smith or a different staple? So Todd Gurley, I think he was picked number 10 overall, coming out with a torn ACL, tore his ACL the year he got picked in the first round. And everyone wasn't sure what Todd Gurley you were going to get. Gurley worries me at this stage. I have no issues picking running backs high in the draft. I think giving them that second contract, especially extending them for big money, I think it really goes buyer beware. As a Bears fan, I thought it was successful with Matt Forte, but Matt Forte was a different type of running back. He was more of catching a lot more passes out of the backfield, and he wasn't always bruising going up the tackles. Gurley with the torn ACL, arthritic knee, there's some issues there. I don't see it helping Atlanta. It's more of a homecoming feel-good story. I wish it
Yeah.
wasn't the case for Gurley, but I don't see how this improves Atlanta a whole bunch.
I just think it's a no risk signing for the Falcons. I mean, they gave him $6 million. I think they pair him with Devontae Freeman.
Well,
A
they cut
decent O
Freeman.
line. Oh, did they cut Freeman? Okay, so it's the Todd Gurley show. I think. I mean, that in that case, I think it's a little risk if you consider the money that they gave him. Why not give it a shot? See if it works out. Obviously, he's shown before when he's healthy. He's obviously a great running back. But like you said, obviously had knee issues coming out of the draft when he played in Georgia. That worries me. And running backs on their second contract in general worry me, especially when you're getting 250 touches a year. Your body wears down. I mean, physically, the NFL is no joke. I mean, you come in the league at 20, by 25, you're an old man and you can't move anymore. That's kind of Todd Gurley is the epitome of that. It's going to happen. And for any Cowboy fan, it's going to happen to Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott runs through the tackles, runs up the middle, once the Cowboys offensive line starts to deteriorate, the same thing is starting to happen to Ezekiel Elliott. And the Giants, like you mentioned, Saquon Barkley, they're going to have a decision to make in 2 years when it comes to signing him. And Saquon is an all-purpose back. He does catch the ball out of the backfield. He is an outside guy. He doesn't exactly run through the tackles and he's not the most physical guy in the world, but he already had an ankle problem this year. It's not a given that any of these things work out the way you want them to. So I think it's safe to say you should not be ever picking a running back in the top 15 picks in any draft. I don't care if it's Earl Campbell reincarnated. You just don't need to do it. And I just think that you have to be smart about this. I think the shelf life of a running back is about the first contract length, and then you move on. And I think if you are in a position to succeed, a position to win, and all you're looking for is an offensive playmaker, go ahead, pick a running back. You're probably picking late in the draft anyway. Go ahead. He might be able to make some plays for you and help you win a Super Bowl. If you're a team rebuilding, picking high, don't pick a running back. It's just pick an offensive lineman. Pick someone to help your young QB if you have a young QB. I just think there's so many different ways to go about it. And then once you're ready to win and you need another guy to make plays, then go ahead. Give it a shot late in the first round. I just think that once you get the top 15, you're one of these teams kind of middling in the 8-8 area, or the team looking to rebuild, picking running back is never really the smartest thing. Because by the time you're ready to win again, that guy's probably not going to be a part of it.
Yeah, and you brought up Zeke, and I think that's an interesting case study to see exactly what went wrong with what the Cowboys did. So when we take a look at the Cowboys, they signed Zeke first, which
Yeah.
to many people, he had 2 years left on his contract. You play that thing out, and then I think you still have the franchise tag, and it sucks for running backs because it's just the evidence that's been presented throughout the last 20 years or so in the NFL is that they don't last. So you let Zeke play out those 2 years, then you franchise them, and it's a year-to-year proposition with them. But no,
Yeah.
they decided that they wanted to give Zeke big money. God bless Zeke, he got his money. But then now you looked at this offseason. They had to decide between Amari Cooper and Dak. So they franchised Dak and then effectively gave Amari Cooper $25 million a year or $20 million a year for 5 years. It's a lot of money for a wide receiver that disappears in big games. But that's part of
Yeah.
the thing. Dak needed Amari Cooper. I think you could almost make the case that Amari Cooper was more important to Dak than Zeke was to Dak.
I would
So
agree.
they did it backwards. I think Dak should have got worked out when it was still reasonable. When you could have got probably Dak for 28 and 32 million a year. Figure something out within those
Yeah.
frameworks. But they wanted to wait it out, and it's going to cost them dearly. And now they had to pay Amari, and now you're probably staring at the face of you lost Byron Jones. You already signed DeMarcus Lawrence, but now you're offensive lineman. I mean, they're in cap hell, and it's not a better football team.
Nope.
The Cowboys aren't going to the Super Bowl anytime soon because you lost your best cover corner. Your defense, is losing pieces. You still have to worry about Van Der Esch if he's really the real deal, because last year he disappeared
Didn't play.
too.
He didn't
Yeah.
play a lot. He was hurt a lot.
Yep. So now you have a bunch of questions, and that's the thing about running backs. We talk about running backs, and I agree with you on Barkley. Barkley, when the decision comes due, I'm going to play it by ear. I'm going to do year to year. You draft your running back, you take it year to year thereafter. But to your point, Yeah, if you're rebuilding, you need to project a guy being on your roster 10, 12 years, not
Uh-huh.
5 to 6.
And I think it was smart because we saw a team in particular use a particular running back to carry them and deep in the playoffs, and the Titans. They did not overreact to Derrick Henry's postseason run and the season that he had. They paid who they thought was the most important, which was Ryan Tannehill, who showed that he changed their entire franchise when he came in for Marcus Mariota. But Derrick Henry, despite the run that he had and how great he was, they understand that the combination of Ryan Tannehill and their offensive line is why Derrick Henry is successful, and that Derrick Henry in 2 years is not going to be the same guy that he is today. So they did the smart thing and they franchised him. I think that every team should operate like this. After that first contract is over, no matter how well that guy has played to that point, you franchise him. If he does that again, you either franchise him again or try to get a couple of years out of him. Don't give him a 5-year max deal. It's never going to work out for you. I mean, it doesn't always work that way. Obviously, the players trying to look out for themselves as well, but it's just they have to understand that this is how this works. There's an average. People do the math on these things. We have the data to prove that these things don't last as long as you want them to. So to franchise them, you're getting your money. You have a year. You have a prove it deal. If you play well enough, yeah, you'll get a contract. Might not be from that same team, but you'll get paid. But I think it's smart for any team, instead of giving them that contract, you franchise them and see how well it goes. And usually, like you said, you play it by year and see go by year by it.
Yeah, and the perfect example right now that we have staring right at our face, and Bill O'Brien, the dumbest idiot out there in the entire NFL world.
Don't spoil the next segment.
Okay, all right, we'll get to that next segment.
All right, well, thank you, Matt, for helping us transition into trades in the offseason here. And there's no more shocking trade in the offseason than seeing. Oh, at first, it was just an innocent trade of David Johnson getting traded to the Texans. All right, I don't hate that. Not the end of the world. Until 5 minutes later, we just discovered that DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best wide receivers in the entire sport, was also part of this deal. Oh, yeah, maybe he gets a first-round pick back. No. You got a second-round pick and a third-round pick. And David Johnson, who you couldn't have begged for someone to take. Bill O'Brien, what is you doing, bro? What is happening?
I feel it's like one of those Taken movies where Steve Keim called Bill O'Brien and says, I have your daughter, and the only way you get your daughter back is if you take David Johnson and you give us Hopkins. I mean, so I have the trade in front of me, and it gets worse. So this year, this is what's moving. David Johnson and a second-round pick to the Houston Texans. Then the fourth-round pick of the Houston this year goes to Arizona. Next year, Arizona sends their fourth-round pick to Houston. On what planet does this trade get approved? Like, who does this trade? This is the dumbest trade I've ever seen in the history of football. And it's not like a wide receiver that's in his early 30s. Hopkins is like 27, 28 years old, and he's probably top easily 1 or 2 in the NFL right now at his position.
Yeah.
And he's got, I think, 3 years left on his contract, like 60 million, 20, like we talk about Cooper. I would pay $20 million a year for DeAndre Hopkins. I know what I'm getting.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, this trade is so stupid. Only one other GM should have made it, and it's Ryan Pace. That's the only other GM that could have got it.
There's another one. And it's Dave Gettleman. But
well, I'm not. Yeah, well, I know he likes his running backs, but yeah, like
he sure does.
And Ryan Shiner tried this trade in Madden, and he just said he couldn't get it done.
I believe it.
Like, you gave David Johnson a contract. He hasn't been good for 3 years. 3 years. Like, that's a salary dump. Like you said, when it first came out, I was like, oh, David Johnson went to the Texans. Okay, well, I'm sure, they gave him a second-round pick, and Houston took on some of that salary. Oh, no, I was way wrong.
It was way worse.
I mean, it's so bad. So where there's smoke, there's fire. So we heard some rumors. DeAndre was talking to Michael Irvin saying that, Bill O'Brien called him into his office. He didn't like that he brought all of his kids' mothers with him around, which, hey, you know what? If a man wants to be around his kids and it's not a distraction, all more power to you. Yeah, you got a limited time to watch your kids grow up. But then he compares them to Aaron Hernandez, which couldn't be further from the truth. If this is true, which I think it is, because Jadeveon Clowney, when he left, echoed some similar sentiments about O'Brien and how he treated black players versus white players. And keep in mind, this is the same Bill O'Brien who went to Penn State after that whole mess unraveled with Jerry Sandusky diddling little kids, and he thought Paterno statues should have stayed. You couldn't come up with a more tone-deaf motherfucker in your entire life. Like, this guy has not a damn clue about anything that he's doing.
I believe that's the first F-bomb in Deep Thirds Football podcast history. I'm so happy that happened on Bill O'Brien's segment.
He's the one that needed it. He earned it.
He got it before the Bears.
Oh, the Bears! The Bears are going to get something.
Oh God! You said it was the dumbest trade in football history, maybe sports history. I'm trying to think of a worse one, and I can't. As much as I hated the Odell Beckham trade, they got a first-round pick for him, and they got a third-round pick for him, and they got a guard back who played a lot for them, who was a Pro Bowler. So it makes the Odell trade looks really good.
And they got Jabril Peppers, who I really like Jabril Peppers.
Yeah.
He's not okay, awful.
Yeah.
Swiss Army knife.
Right. It's not David Johnson. Like if the Giants had traded Odell and got one of the old Browns quarterbacks, one of the 16 quarterbacks they've had this century, I would have been pissed. But like Brian Hoyer was included in the trade. It's almost the equivalent of this. I mean, to make this deal, like you said, it's a salary dump. Like you could have called up the Ravens and been like, we'll give you a second-round pick. You take David Johnson off our hands. You called the Bills, a guy, maybe a team who could use a playmaker. Like, we'll give you a second-round pick. Take him. And they're like, okay, yeah, we'll eat the money, whatever. But what is he doing? What is happening here?
You know, and here's the thing with the Cardinals, and everyone knew it down here in Arizona. One, we all knew that David Johnson was not long to be on the Cardinals. They loved Kenyon Drake. They wanted to keep Kenyon Drake above David Johnson. And they were trying to do whatever they could to make sure they had enough money to keep Drake, because they put the transition tag on him, which I think is almost $10 million a year for a running back. So they were frantically moving around trying to make calls. So I only imagine like how the call went. Like Steve Keim calls Bill, is like, "Hey Bill, you need a running back. I got David Johnson. You know, I'm willing to send you a second-round pick." And then Bill says, "You know what, Steve? I will take David Johnson off your hands, but you have to take DeAndre Hopkins off my hands." Like, what the hell? Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, hang up the phone.
I'll send the paperwork.
But like you said, maybe some bad blood between O'Brien and Hopkins. I mean, they didn't want to pay him $18 million a year, like whatever the contract dispute was. I saw the number. I was like, we're not blown away by the number at all. I mean, I think DeAndre Hopkins is worth top receiver money regardless of what it is, and now the Arizona Cardinals is going to be really fun to watch with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk and all the other weapons that they have. Like, I think, this is highway robbery at its finest.
Look at what Stephon Diggs got the Minnesota Vikings.
And it's a good transition to what we're going to talk about next. I mean, I don't know how Stephon Diggs is worth the first-round pick, but DeAndre Hopkins is not. I think I like Stephon Diggs as a player, but a first-rounder? Okay, you tell me a first-rounder goes for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm like, okay, what else? But you could have told me all that they gave up for Stephon Diggs was a first-round pick. I'm like, all right, probably a little too steep for me, but what else? And they gave him more. Like, what is happening? Like, if after right as that trade happened, if I was the Bills, I would have said, you know what? How about we give you a second instead? Like, I'm not giving you a first-round pick for a receiver after that. I'm just not, unless it's Julio Jones or I mean, no one. After DeAndre Hopkins, there's not many receivers I'm even thinking about that anymore. That's insane.
It was so epically bad that if I were the Vikings and I'm talking to the Bills, I don't know how that trade would ever got done, because if I'm the Bills, I'm like, hey, look, guys, we really like Diggs, but we just saw DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, can you take some guys off our hands and give us a second-round pick, and, we'll send you send us Diggs, and it'll all be good. But no, Buffalo reestablished the wide receiver trade market, and I just, to me, it just shows how inept Bill O'Brien is at everything he touches. The Clowney trade, where he got two special teamers and what was
Uh-huh.
that, third round pick
Uh-huh.
for, you know, a guy with oozing athleticism that has had some really productive NFL seasons.
Uh-huh.
And you get nothing for him, and then you trade away Hopkins, and you get nothing of value for Hopkins. I mean,
And he's traded 2 first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil.
oh
Two
God.
two first-round picks for a left tackle who is good and probably not even like a top 5 left tackle in the sport. What is like this guy does not deserve his job anymore. I'm sorry, he has to go. If I like at this point, Deshaun Watson is everything to this franchise. If you're Deshaun Watson, why are you going to stay there? What is keeping you there? He's gone.
Yeah, and right now, if I'm the Bears, I'm like, hey, Bill, you want Mitch Trubisky? We have like 30 tight ends you can choose from. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of draft capital, but we got some second round picks if you like those.
You like second rounders, that's for sure. All right, I think we can agree. Bill O'Brien, awful at his job. Cannot believe he has GM powers. Can't believe he still has he's a head coach. Get him out of our lives. Maybe not. Maybe he's better for our football fandoms that he's not a member of any of the teams that we root for. Sorry if there's any Texans fans in football life. I feel for you. But maybe this is karma for the Astros. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of sports god working his magic on this. All right, Stephon Diggs, briefly mentioned him before, traded to the Buffalo Bills for a first-round pick. I don't know all the details. Maybe you have that in front of you. But a first-round pick and then more is a little much for me. I think a first-round pick is too steep for Stephon Diggs to begin with. I think he plays better when Adam Thielen is in the game. I think he's way better when Kirk Cousins is playing better. I don't think he changes anything. I just think Stephon Diggs, I like him, but I don't think he's even a top 10 receiver in the sport. What do you think?
I mean, I think I'm in the same boat with you as far as the draft compensation, and I definitely not the top 10 in the NFL. I mean, obviously with Thielen it helps, but I still think he's very good. I think Diggs
Yeah.
definitely has a niche, and that he can definitely stretch the field for you. He's got good hands. He's got good, I mean, excellent footwork when he gets close to the sidelines. You know, a late first, maybe early second round, I could see. You know, I think the totality of the trade was a first, a fourth, and a seventh,
Yeah.
which, I mean, it's a lot, especially with the Bills picking somewhere, I believe, in, you know, like the 20th range. You
I think it's
know,
24, 24, 25.
you know what? Then maybe to me the value is right if it was just a first round pick, but you throw in a fourth round
Yeah.
pick, I'm
Yeah.
not liking it as much.
But like you said, when you compare it that DeAndre Hopkins gets a second, I'm giving you a third and a fourth, and then we can talk.
Yep.
It's crazy that I like Stephon Diggs. Had one of the more memorable moments in football in the playoffs, especially recently with the miracle, the Minneapolis Miracle. I still get chills every time I see it. It was truly an incredible play. Um, I mean, I love Stephon Diggs. I think I don't love him. I shouldn't say. I really think he's a good player, but first round seems a little too steep for me. I think the Bills overpaid a little bit, but they think that this is their window. You know, obviously the Brady's gone. This is their chance to win the division now. I think that they recognize that and they're going for it. So how much can I really fault them?
Yeah, and thanks to Jacob who gave us the trade parameters. So what we
Yes,
have is the Bills gave up their first, fifth, and sixth round picks this year, and a 2021 fourth round pick to get Diggs
it's
and
a
a
lot.
2027 round pick. Yeah, that's a lot. That is a whole
It's a
lot of
lot.
draft capital.
It's a whole lot for if Josh Allen doesn't get better. Almost a lot for nothing. You know, I mean, this is all up to Josh Allen at this point.
Yep.
I it seems like a lot for a guy who kind of seems to disappear in a lot of games to me.
Well, yeah, and you know, I think the other thing too is like it almost feels like it's make it or break it for Josh. Like, all right, now we're
Yeah.
giving you a weapon. You don't have any
Uh-huh.
excuses. So show us
Yeah.
what you got. You know, put your cards on the table. Let's go.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Another deal that I was pretty surprised about, considering he just helped lead one of the best defenses to a Super Bowl when you mentioned this earlier. But DeForest Buckner traded to the Colts. I mean, this is a game changer for them, right? I mean, DeForest Buckner is a really good pass rusher.
He absolutely changes the dynamic of the Colts defense. Very much like when the Bears got Khalil Mack. The Colts were good at every level defensively. You just
Uh-huh.
never felt like they had that superstar. Now, the Colts
Uh-huh.
don't have the Bears players defensively. I mean, they don't have superstars at every level like the Bears do defensively. but man, they are so solid. And then you get DeForest Buckner, a bona fide
Mhm.
top tier pass rusher. I got to be honest, and I know, 49er fans think it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was a really shrewd deal. You signed Eric Armstead to a 5-year, $85 million deal.
Mhm.
You know what? No, I don't want Armstead because I know what he was before before Bosa, D Ford, and DeForest Buckner were all on the field together. He was nothing. He was
Yeah.
long arms, big body, couldn't get to the quarterback. You chose
Yeah.
to pay him over DeForest Buckner, the man that single-handedly pushes the pocket inside, that allows the outside rush ends to get pressure without having to worry about double teams all the time. Buckner, you had to put the center and the guard on him at all times, and if he went out, God help you. And then you talk about a 6'7" frame where he was able to get his hands up over a 7 foot. Like, imagine being like a Drew Brees type or a smaller quarterback
Mhm.
trying to get the football over that. This is indefensible, stupid John Lynch moves. Like, he
Mhm.
does one of these occasionally that just kind of makes you shake your head. I, under no circumstances would I trade a franchise-altering player like DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner was their best defensive player when they had no one defensively. And
Yeah.
then you trade him to the Colts because you chose Eric Armstead? You paid DeForest Buckner $5-6 million more a year, and you're fine. Teams restructure deals all the time. You could afford DeForest Buckner. It's not like you're going to end up paying Jimmy Garoppolo $30 million a year. This is boneheaded and stupid, but good for the Colts.
Still have D Ford and Joey Bosa on that line. It's still a good defensive line. The trade is pretty much DeForest Buckner for the Colts' first round pick, which is 13 overall. Hard to beat the Colts getting a guy who had 20 sacks in the last 2 years and is a physical specimen. He's 6'7", almost 290 pounds. I mean, he's gonna change their defense, and I think along with what's their linebacker's name is blanking on it. Was it
Um,
Darius Leonard?
yep,
I
tackling
mean,
machine.
tackling machine. I really like this addition by the Colts. And the Niners, we'll see what they do with that first round pick. Maybe they have something in mind. Maybe something to do with to improve offense somewhere. I think the defense will be fine. Not that worried about the Niners dropping off defensively
Well,
at all.
oh, no, I think you should because I think it's going to. Because one of their Achilles heels that everyone talked about going into the game and kind of what the analysis I saw was like they had a little trouble stopping the run. If you had a
Yeah.
little trouble stopping the run with DeForest Buckner, who's a terrific run stopper as well, and you lose that guy for Eric Armstead, who, like I said, disappears in big moments, disappears a lot,
Yeah.
um, I don't like it. But, 49er fans were thinking, okay, well, we got, a first round pick. I think they got 2 firsts now. They're like, oh, well, we're going to get Diggs. Nope, not Diggs. What are you going to get from this? Your team has to go win a Super Bowl within the next, like your window's 2 years, possibly.
Yeah.
And
I,
offensively, you're not better.
I think I mean, they're not going to land Jared Judy. He's definitely going to be gone by the time they pick. But the kid from Oklahoma, his name is blanking on me right now. But they get one
D.D.
of these top
Lamb.
three. Yeah, CD Lamb. Yeah, CD Lamb. And they get Lamb. They get one of Henry Ruggs. I think that it ended up working out in their favor. But we'll see what happens with the pick. I mean, we can't predict the future here, but definitely a win for the Colts at face value. I think we both agree on that. I think Forrest Buckner is going to be a difference maker for them without question. One last trade, though, we wanted to talk about, and I think this is going to be the most entertaining for our viewers from Matt's perspective because he's a Bears fan. Um, a lot of Bears fans thought they had the quarterback of the future. You traded up, you got your guy, Mitch Trubisky. You're good. You're good for a decade. You don't need a guy. But what if you had the chance to add a Super Bowl MVP? A guy with one of the best nicknames you could ever ask for. And I'm not going to say it because I like to think this is a PG broadcast. But now you have the guy that you have already, Trey Burton. Now you have the guy he threw a touchdown pass to in that Super Bowl. Nick Foles is now the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I'm so excited for you. Aren't you hyped? Come on, what do you think? All you had to give up was a fourth round pick.
It was a PG show until this segment. All right. So let's start from the beginning. To fully understand the Bears, you would have to go back a little ways to the Mark Trestman era which was the dumbest era of Chicago Bears football that ever lived. I mean, this guy was a screwball. He wrote a book on leadership, yet had none. That's what we need, more leaders projecting leadership that don't know how to lead. So Bears sucked. Absolutely just garbage. They lost their defense. They lost their offense. They had nothing. All right, so Trestman gets fired. Phil Emery, a complete idiot. It was like we had two guys from CSI trying to run a football team. So then we get Ryan Pace, young kid from New Orleans Saints. He knows how to build a winner. He's been around Drew Brees, Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton. Oh, man, we got the GM of the future. First pick. Okay, we need a replacement. Alshon Jeffrey's gone probably. We got rid of Brandon Marshall. So we got to get a wide receiver. 1 year of production. Kevin White, 6'3", really fast. Kevin White, splintered shins. Just fucking terrible pick. Top 7 pick, and you blew it. Okay. Couldn't stay healthy. Can't make it in the NFL. Great. All right, Ryan, let's give it another try. So we know what he did. First round pick, he went, I want physical attributes. I don't want production guys that's done it over a course of the time. I don't want those football players. So what does he do? Next year, Leonard Floyd. Not a whole lot of production, but guess what, Randy? He's wiry, and he's got that bend, great hip bend. Oh, guess what, Leonard Floyd? 4 years with the fucking Bears, 20 sacks. You have Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack, and you can't get to the quarterback? Teams aren't even thinking about you. Your best attribute is being to drop back in pass coverage. You're a rush linebacker, and you can't rush the quarterback. Okay, Ryan, you know what? That's fine. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Your next first-round pick. You know what? Only played 1 year of football in college, but, man, he knows what it's like to be a team player, and he drives a shitty-ass car. Let's go draft Mitch Trubisky, and don't you dare sell that car. You drive it up to Hallis Hall, buddy, because we want your work ethic. We saw Deshaun Watson in the national championship game. We don't need him. Oh, Patrick Mahomes, the kid, his arms can't even be measured by a radar gun. He throws it so fast. It won't even pick it up. We want you, Mitch Trubisky, because you, sir, are a leader. You led on the bench, and that's what we want. We want guys to stick it out that can't play. Great. Fantastic. So let's fast forward the clock. Ryan Pace got stuck with not a whole lot of talent. So, we start thinking, it's a good team. Picks up Akeem Hicks, does the Khalil Mack trade. Great. I will give Ryan Pace credit. If he's not picking in the first round, he does a really damn good job. Eddie Jackson in the 4th round, Tariq Cohen in the 4th round, Cody Whitehair, who I think is okay in the 2nd round, Eddie Goldman in the 2nd round, if I already said Eddie Goldman. I do kind of like Anthony Miller, and he did sign Allen Robinson. But now let's take a look at the tight end position. Trey Burton, anxiety issues, what was a real question mark for that double doink game, so, not really a factor. Then he goes off and signs trash bucket Jimmy Graham off the scrap heap. And you know what?
Gave him $10 million a year.
You know what? If he couldn't be productive with Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, what the hell is he going to do with Mitch Trubisky? Oh, well, you know what?
That's what he needed.
Oh, Jimmy Graham needs a trash can quarterback. You know what? It all makes sense to me. So Ryan Pace then picks Matt Nagy. What made Matt Nagy unique? Well, fiery leadership, be you. Another coach with slogans, because that's what we need. We need slogans. We don't need football acumen. Matt Nagy's offense is like some sort of perverted version of Andy Reid mixed with Mark Trestman. And, God bless Vic Fangio, because if Vic Fangio wasn't there for that first year under Matt Nagy, I don't know what this team would have done. But I'm so sick of the Bears. Nick Foles, whatever. It doesn't move the needle for me because it doesn't make you better. This team's 8-8 because guess what? Their offensive line sucks. They refused to bench their left tackle, Charles Leno, and he absolutely was trash. Charles Leno couldn't block a cold. He got pancaked by a defensive back. How embarrassing is it for a cornerback to run you over? 200 and a 205-pound corner runs over your 300-pound left tackle. It's disgusting. I watched more game tape on the Bears, and each week I got sicker. It was like I had the coronavirus before they knew the coronavirus even existed by watching Bears tape.
All right, on the show. It's over. No, go ahead. Keep going.
And then our dear friend Brad Motley, he sends me a message today on our post. Do you want to know what the Bears are doing in such a crisis time? You want good PR, right? Like, hey, you know what? We're going to help, the people that need help right now. They're losing jobs. No, because, that's not the Bears way. The Bears have demanded that people pay currently for their season tickets. We want our money, bitches. We don't care if, you know what? We don't care about you. You pay us our money. You know what, Bears? Congratulations. God bless Bill O'Brien for me, Randy, because you want to know why? My local games are the Arizona Cardinals. And I get to watch DeAndre Hopkins now.
Yes, you do.
Screw Ryan Pace. Screw the Bears. I'm sick of this crap. Like, we talk about Cam Newton. He wasn't going to make this team better. Andy Dalton wasn't going to make this team better. You know what would have made this team better? Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. Get a GM that's going to select football players in the first round. Chris Ballard, first pick. Quentin Nelson. My God, was it that freaking hard? You pick football players.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to rub salt in the wound, but we kind of said that it was a bad pick at the time. And I know as football fans, we want to talk ourselves into our guys and everything, but at least he came around. You're not still on the Trubisky wagon here. And I like Foles. I think he's better than Mitch. I think that he can make things happen for you.
Randy, I don't think it matters, though, because the offense, it's not Andy Reid's offense. So, it's Matt Nagy's offense. And the cadence in which you call plays, there has to be a rhythm and some sort of, method behind it. With Nagy, it's just like he's pulling them out of his hat. I want to show you guys how much of a genius I am. I'm going to run for 1 yard on 2nd and 9 to go 3rd and 8. My quarterback can't throw very well, but we're going to throw a wide receiver screen on 3rd and 8. Please break like 8 tackles so you can get the 8 yards for a first down. And then he does things with Mitch. And Mitch, by all accounts, is a nice kid. His teammates love him. He was put in a terrible situation. If he does ever succeed in the NFL, it's not going to be with this team. Nagy and Trubisky and Pace are never going to win together. It'd almost be better if they just took Mitch and traded him off for whatever you could get for him at this point, which is probably close to nothing, unless you trade him to the Texans, which you might get something. And you just give the job to Foles at this point. See what Foles can do, and maybe that makes a difference. But you can't go do this with Trubisky and Nagy again. Nagy doesn't get Trubisky's skill set. Trubisky doesn't get Nagy's offense. And it's just going to be a hammer and a square hole, or a round circle and a square hole all year long with these two again.
I feel for you, my friend. One of the best segments in Deep Thirds Football Podcast history. We're going to tie a bow on this episode with a couple of quick segments here. If you don't mind, we can transition so you can get out of your misery a little bit. Maybe not, because maybe maybe one of these guys we're talking about could end up on your Bears. I just want to do a quick little potential landing spots for a couple quarterbacks whose future is in the air now after some of these moves. And one of those guys you just mentioned is Cam Newton. Where do you see him playing football in 2020?
I think the Chargers make a lot of sense. I think he ends up in San Diego.
All right. Well, he can go play San Diego, but no one's going to be there. So
Los Angeles Chargers.
I like the LA Chargers as a landing spot for Cam. I also like the Patriots. I'm going to be honest. I'd really like to see him in New England and see what happens there. There's a few teams who definitely just need quarterbacks, and there are only 3 guys. So I think we might say similar teams for a few of these guys. So next guy on the list we mentioned earlier, Jameis Winston. Now he has Tom Brady taking his spot over. Where is he going to end up?
XFL.
Wow, the disrespect.
If he can back up somewhere, that's one thing. But we know 3 things about Jameis. One, he's extremely immature. He doesn't seem coachable, and he might be colorblind. So I maybe he's a backup. I just can't see an NFL coach living with a quarterback where he knows he's going to turn the ball over 40 times a year. I mean, that's losing football no matter where you go.
Uh-huh. All right, I'm going to throw this one out there just for my own entertainment value here because I loved watching Jameis Winston just be an absolute train wreck. So it would make me any happier than if he signed the Dallas Cowboys and backed up Dak Prescott. And then when they decide not to sign Dak Prescott and they just let him walk, Jameis Winston is the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. How incredible would that be? Not going to happen, but it'd be awesome.
It should happen. I don't know if it will, but it definitely should.
Yeah. All right, one last guy. We talked about him earlier, the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. Where's he going to land?
Yeah, I think this is textbook New England quarterback right here. Belichick will love him, and he won't make any waves.
If you asked me this question 3 years ago after Dalton helped the Bills make the playoffs after beating the Ravens in that one game, remember the wild card scenario where the Bills needed like 3 teams to win? I would have thought he was a lock to go to the Bills. I obviously don't think that's a thing anymore because of the Josh Allen situation. But I think Andy Dalton will either sign with the Patriots or I think he's going to go to your Bears. I think that's still a possibility. Why not? If I'm the Bears, just hoard all the quarterbacks. Just see what happens. His hair matches the uniforms. It'd be great.
There's certain things I don't need in my life, and I don't need any more trash quarterbacks. Randy, I remember watching a Bears game, and they did this graphic of Bears starters since Brett Favre started quarterbacking the Green Bay Packers. 23 quarterbacks. 23 different quarterbacks started for the Bears during Favre's tenure with the Packers.
Those are Browns numbers. My friend.
We were the Browns before the Browns. I mean, we got the corner. I mean, they had Vinny Testaverde. I mean, Bear fans will talk about Jay Cutler, garbage. Jim McMahon, who we like, but I mean, he was never a superstar quarterback in the NFL in the 80s. I mean, you have to go back to 1940, 1930s. Sid Luckman. It's like the Bears view the NFL like it's 1920. The forward pass is not yet legal. Therefore, we just need to be able to run the ball with 4 different guys: quarterback, running back, fullback, whatever.
I just want to throw one more team out for one of these guys. Don't sleep on the Redskins for either the Jameis Winston or the Cam Newton trade or signing possibility. I think that they could use a guy to come in and help out Haskins a little bit. I don't think that they're sold completely. Just throwing that out there. I could see Washington making a move. All right, you said some things you don't need in your life. I think all of us don't need in our life because this coronavirus that's been going on here. I think I speak for most of us when I say I'm kind of bored. I kind of miss sports. Kind of trying to do the right thing and stay in the house and keep myself busy. And I've been kind of looking for things to do. I told you before the show, I've been watching old WrestleManias. I started at WrestleMania 16, and today I'm on WrestleMania 23. I just watched Vince get his head shaved bald from the guy who's now the freaking president of the United States. How the world changes. But now I learned today that NFL Game Pass is now free, which is cool. And I think that NBA League Pass is also free. So anyone interested in that can go check that out. But I also read an article today on NFL.com about the 20 most watchable games in the last decade. No surprise, neither my Giants or your Bears had a game on that list. So what I thought would be interesting is if you're interested in the list, I can tag everyone in there, but it's on Football Life. It's an NFL link with 20 most watchable games in the last decade that you can go watch on Game Pass. But Matt, if you could pick a game that the Bears have played since 2010, that is the game that you should go watch. That is this is the most entertaining game that the Bears have played, and win or lose, what is that game?
Well, I mean, it's got to be the 2010 NFC Championship game against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. I mean entertaining because it really gives you a microcosm of what it's like to be a Bears fan. Racked with disappointment, um, a little bit of hope, and then it just gets squashed. So check out the Bears-Packers NFC Championship game. You'll feel some pity for Bears fans. It's watchable. You get to see a great defense in the Bears really make its last great stand.
I find it hard to believe that a game that features Caleb Haney is the best game of the last decade for
Well,
your team.
you had Julius Peppers, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs,
Okay.
Charles Tillman. I mean, there were pieces there. The defense was good.
Well, just off the top of my head, the most memorable Bears game that I can remember, besides the double doink, and I won't even get into that really with you, but there was a Monday Night Football game where Josh McCown played in place of Jay Cutler, and him and Alshon Jeffrey, I believe, had 3 touchdowns in this game. You probably remember the game better than me, but I just remember Josh McCown having a really good stretch. I believe in 2013, maybe I don't know if I have the year right, but I remember him coming in and having a really, really good stretch for the Bears, and that game was part of it. Yeah, I don't know. You know what game I'm talking about?
I know that year, and with Josh McCown, Alshon Jeffrey had like 3 200-yard receiving games. It was
Yeah,
nuts. And that might have been the Thursday night game against the Dallas Cowboys where
that might be also
McCown
why I like it.
absolutely torched the Cowboys. I mean, he
And
just,
Romo had a really bad game, right? Romo had like 3 picks, I think.
yeah, oh yeah, man. Yeah, the Bears took him out to the woodshed.
Yeah. Our guy Leon Tompkins in the comments said try Lions football, so I guess he might have you on that one. So
Yeah,
if anyone's got you, it might be the Lions. All right, so I picked. It's down to 2 games for me for the Giants. They haven't been exactly the most watchable team in the world for the last decade. They did win a Super Bowl. If you're a Giants fan, go watch Super Bowl 46. Happened in the last decade. I don't think it's the greatest football game ever by any means, but if you're a Giants fan, to make you happy, certainly makes me happy. But the best game the Giants played in this decade was the game before that. It was the 2011 NFC Championship game against the 49ers. It was raining a candlestick. It was a great 49ers defense beating up Eli Manning. Eli Manning having a shoulder pad off, calling timeouts. It was one of the 2 best games he ever played in his entire career. And I think for a defensive, hard-nosed football game, I'm sure if you're a 49ers fan, you're not going to go watch it because it'll just make you hate Kyle Williams all over again. But if you're a Giants fan, if you're a football fan, I think it is truly a great overall football game. Another game that I could think of for the Giants, 2016, the only other time the Giants made the playoffs this past decade, was the Odell Beckham tear season. They played the Ravens. They were down 10 points going into the fourth quarter, and Odell just goes bonkers. He had 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, took a slant to the house with under a minute left. He rips his helmet off like an idiot, so it's not like, oh, the game's over. No, now they get the ball to 40. Now we have to sweat this out. We might not win. But it was a very entertaining football game. It was, it's not all of them end the way we would like them to. And I know I picked 2 wins. I'm sure there's some entertaining losses in there that I try not to think about. They're just emptied out of my brain. But go check it out. If you want to watch some old football games, I'm sure all of our teams have games on there that are pretty entertaining overall. But no matter what you're doing, just be safe. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Don't do anything stupid. Just wash your hands a bunch. Just social distancing. We've all been practicing that our whole lives. Play some video games.
yeah. I mean, there's plenty of video games out there to play. The MLB The Show 20's out. For a little
Yeah.
baseball fix. Go play that. I believe Madden. You can do tournaments on Madden if you have
Mm-hmm.
that. The biggest thing though is you're right, Randy. Social distancing. Obviously, we all want to be able to do our normal daily activities, but that changes. And
Yeah.
my public service announcement is this, people. Buy what you need in a reasonable manner. You don't need 200 rolls of toilet paper for 2 people. I mean, let's face it. This is going to be bad, but you're not trapped in your houses through 2024. Be reasonable
Yeah.
with stuff. And kudos to
Yeah.
the stores for finally putting a limit on how much crap you can buy when it comes to it.
Yeah.
My wife and I went to Walmart a couple of nights ago, even though I wasn't supposed to, but And long story short, kind of self-imposed self-quarantine, reasons I'm not going to get into, but it was 1 carton of eggs and 1 gallon of milk. That's all you could get. So with that being said, be wise, be smart, think about your fellow humans.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice way of saying it, Matt. Yeah, obviously it's a difficult time in the world. I hope that this helped you guys escape from reality a little bit. I know that our sports normally we'd be having March Madness going on right now. We'd have some escape from our everyday lives, but unfortunately, this pandemic has kind of taken over all of our lives and every aspect of it. But somehow, some way, football makes out like a bandit in this situation. The draft will go on as usual, and hopefully, by the time the fall comes around, we will have this beautiful sport back in our lives, and hopefully our lives will be back to normal well before that even. So uh,
Yeah. Hold on for a second, Randy. I just, just so everyone knows, there's some information floating around about the draft. One, it's going to be canceled in Vegas. So it's not going to happen in Vegas. If you have plans to go to Vegas, cancel them, try to get your money back. Second part is you're probably looking at late May for the draft to take place. The draft is going to happen. It's just going to get delayed a little bit. So don't worry about
yeah,
that.
and I think they can still make it work in this scenario where they can put cameras in all the draft players' houses, and they can do this whole thing remotely, and it'll still be must-watch TV. And I think NFL it couldn't have asked for better timing for this sort of thing. I feel bad for all the other sports and all the other people affected by it, but hopefully back in a month or two, we're back to normal. Can't predict the future, but we'll see what happens. But this is not this show is not it for the Life Group podcast, I should say, because tomorrow morning, in about 12 hours from now, we're gonna have the Step Back podcast in Ball is Life with Jacob Moses and Leon Tompkins, who are our buddies over in Ball is Life. They're gonna have some good basketball talk. Gonna talk about where the NBA stands right now. Probably have hopefully some uplifting things to talk about. I know that it's not the greatest time for basketball, but those guys do a great job of talking about the sport, and I have no doubt that it'll be a great show. So stick around for that at 10 or 11 o'clock tomorrow morning in Ball is Life. Those guys will have a great show. Matt, despite most of the fun things in life being canceled, alcohol is not one of them. So cheers, buddy. Until next time. See you guys.